I'm Mike Dukart, creator of Illusion Game Call Systems. And as a former outfitter, it was hard for me to go to the store and buy a call that would work as effective in the field as I needed it to. So for the past 12 years, I've been designing and engineering products that would work with a much wider range of tone and volume. Now, each one of these systems is packaged with a CD-ROM that plays video on your computer, and it has an audio track for a CD player. And these CDs teach you what the language of the animal is so that you can be more effective in the field. The MiniMag duck call is likely the smallest duck call in the world. And don't let the small size fool you. This thing packs a real big sound. The small size was designed so you can get close to the reeds and have a real good control over the call to give you that nice low raspy subtle sounds, but yet you can put as much air through this thing as you'd like and it'll actually ring out and scream into a high ball. Let me give you a little example of what it sounds like. That nice low raspy natural duck sound. Put as much air through it as you want and scream. This little bugger really sends it out there. Now let's get right into how to hold the call properly. You put it between your thumb and your index finger. Wrap your fingers around it. It's real small, so it may take a little bit of adjusting to get used to it. Now, you don't want to close your hand off on the end of the call. You kind of use your fingers as a baffle. So just keep them flat, keep them level, and just use it as a baffle. You can close them down and you can change the tone of your different calls by lifting your fingers and closing, and that's how you'll use the call. Now, another thing I like to do is I like to blow it with the reeds facing downward. And when the reeds are down, the tone board's on top, the reeds are facing down, I blow off the bottom half of the call. My upper lip covers the top half of the opening, and my bottom lip rests on the call here. So I'm actually putting my air through the bottom portion of the call. I just get a lot better control that way, and I get better variations of sound. So with that in mind, I made sure that the sticker is always facing at the top. So when I look at the little call, I say, oh, there's the sticker. I'm gonna blow it that way. I know I got my reeds facing downward. So that's just a little tip on getting the more performance out of the call itself. So now we're just gonna place it on our bottom lip, just like that. And now we're gonna make the call sound, okay? It's real important to understand that you don't blow into a duck call. You can't blow, you don't wanna blow with your mouth and your cheeks. You wanna breathe into it. So you're kind of saying, he, he. And I just kind of lock my jaw and my tongue and just kind of he, almost like I'm laughing into it, and tighten everything up a little bit and just breathe air into the call. So it's he. So let's get a little bit of noise here. Real lightly. Okay, now as I increase the pressure, you're going to notice a distortion sound in the reeds. So that pitched up and you started getting a distortion sound. That's the call actually breaking over, and that's what you want to learn how to do with a duck call. You don't want to blow into it or toot into it, poo, poo, poo. You want to breathe into it and say, he, and keep a natural steady pace to it and control it that way. My call just broke over. So now I got the right pitches, I'm bringing the air from the right places, I'm breathing into the call. And one thing to remember is when a duck is calling, it's not like you're calling to geese, you're trying to be a single bird. So you want to keep a consistent tone level. And all you really do is you just change the variation of the actual call itself. You don't change the variation of the tone, you change the call itself. And I'll give you an example of that. If I'm going to quack, for instance, notice how I kept that steady pitch. I want that steady pitch, and I just changed my call by inflicting with my fingers and then going that way. So keep that steady air pressure is the point I'm trying to make here. Be consistent with your sound, and then you can get right into all the different pieces of language and sound really realistic in the field. Let's talk about the quack. Now the quack is very important. You want to use it when you can. It's a nice reassuring note. Keep it mellow. Don't be too aggressive with it. And let's get right into how to do the quack. It's very important that you use your fingers to create the quack sound and not try and do it with your mouth and with your air pressure. I like to keep a steady, solid air pressure for my tone, and then I open and close my hands to get that inflection of the note, and it sounds like this. Okay, now what I mean by changing, don't change your air pressure, is a lot of people that I've seen or heard in the marsh is they'll try and make a quack with their air, and it sounds a little like this. And they're changing that air pressure so much it doesn't sound natural. Keep that steady air pressure and just kind of let your hands do the work and just whamp, 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 and shut that off with your tongue, that air pressure at the end. See that steady whamp, that steady pressure, whamp, and shut it off. So if you're doing some nice chuckling and stuff, add some quacks in there to relax the birds. In many cases, the birds will come over. You throw a couple quacks at them, or one or two, and that's all you need, and it just puts them right into the decoys. So use the quack. It's very effective. Be subtle. Very reassuring for the ducks. Now let's talk about the hail or the greeting call. Now the hail and greeting call is something that I like to do to let them know that everything's fine. You can come on right down here, make them feel reassured. It's about 5 to 7 notes. So you start out with some nice series of quacks. There's a little bit of emotion into it, and it goes a little bit like this. That's your hail and your greeting calls. Let's talk about the feeder calls. Now the feeder call is more of a Morse code type of sound to it. It's kind of a and that's actually what I do into the call itself. So let's see what that sounds like. Okay, so that's your feeder chatter. Now, what you don't want to do is confuse that with flight chatter, which are big flock of birds up in the sky that are just going dig 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 dig, and that sounds a little bit like this. So the feeder chatter the feeder call is more of a Morse code kind of sound, and you can throw some quacks into that to really reassure the ducks and relax them. So that'll just make them feel relaxed and bring them in more comfortable. We use that a lot. It's something that's real good for close-in calling. Now let's talk about the cluck. The cluck is nothing more than a content hen that makes a nice relaxed sound. It soothes the other ducks in a feeding type situation. And all you do into the call is you just say kind of a kick 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 or a cack 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 sound. Okay, so let's try that. And it's just kind of a cacky sound. It's a little bit different than your feeder sounds, which is more of the Morse code. You just want that little cack, just kind of kick, 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 kick. It's kind of a squealier sound when you make that K sound into the call. And that's a real nice mix in with your feeder calls. Now let's talk about the comeback call. Now the comeback call is about 5 to 9 notes in succession with a little bit more emotion to it. It's a bunch of quacks. You start out with a nice long quack, wham, 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 and sound like a few different ducks doing it. And what that does is it makes the ducks feel like everything's fine here, come on back, don't worry about it, it's a good place to be. So let's do a few of these. So that just gives you an idea what the comeback call sounds like. You want to be a little bit more emotion with it. Try and sound like a few different pitches of ducks. It doesn't hurt to step on each other a little bit. Let's try it one more time. That's your comeback call. Now let's talk about the plea. Now the plea is really a version of the comeback call where they're just begging. They're just begging them to come back. So you got some elongated notes in there and you're just, please, please come back. And it sounds a little bit like this. So you're just begging, please, please come back, back, back. And that's really what the plea is all about. And I like to use that when the comeback isn't working real well. It's a good time to use it is when they're banking off and you just give them that real plea. And then a lot of times they'll turn, they'll bank, they'll cup, and they'll come right into you. Now let's talk about how to care for your MiniMag duck call. All you need to do is twist the two parts. They'll come apart and expose the gut pieces. Now when you look at the guts, you'll notice that there's a tone board, there's a set of reeds, it's a double reed, and then there's a wedge in there. They're real easy to take apart. All you really need to do is grab a hold of the top, squeeze the reeds in the tone board, and then twist the call again. As you twist it, it comes off, it gets loosened up, and then you can take all the parts out of the call and clean them, take them apart, don't worry about anything. It goes back together the way it's supposed to. It's all hand tuned and everything automatically. So you get them cleaned up and you're ready to put it back together. The only thing you really need to remember is with the two reeds, one of them has a dimple and the other one doesn't. Now the one with the dimple lays on top. And what that dimple actually does is it separates these reeds. It separates them so that they don't stick together with the moisture. So we're going to lay our reeds back on top of the tone board. Dimple reed on top with the dimple facing down. And you'll notice at the very back of the tone board we have a little tuning tab on there. And that sets exactly where it's supposed to on the shelf inside of the insert piece. Okay, there's a little shelf there. So you slide that together, you'll feel it bottom out, you let your reeds stay loose, they'll bottom out in the exact same spot, and then you just place your wedge in there. The little end will go in first, it'll only go in one way. Get that started, and then the pieces are all right where they belong. Now the next thing you want to do is make sure that this is where it belongs, the reeds are where they belong, straighten everything out. Then you just pinch down on these two and press the wedge in just about all the way flush, not quite. That's where I like to keep mine, and it should work real well for you there. Now you can just take your top and be careful now when you place that back on not to catch your reeds and bend or damage those reeds. If you crease them, it's not going to work real good. So you want to make sure that you put your reeds in there. Now I like to blow my call with the reeds facing down. So I'm going to take the logo of the call, put it on top so I know when I'm looking at the logo, the call is going to be just where I like it. Put it in my hand and it should work perfectly. Just like new. So now you can troubleshoot when you're in the field. If you get some dirt or something in there, you don't have to worry about it being out of tune when you're hunting, and it'll work great for you. Just pay attention to putting everything back together right, and you're good to go. Now there's another version of the MiniMag duck call, the teal and diver version. We engineered the sound to be more like the teal sounds and the loudness of the diver chatter needed in the open waters. So look for that one as well. You can find it at our website along with all of our great waterfowl line, turkey and deer. And we really wish you a lot of luck in the field. This instructional hopefully has helped you quite a bit, and have a good time and be safe.